Who likes slinging spells? Who likes casting those spells again for free? We're Izzet mages. Of course we love slinging spells. And somehow, I haven't done an Izzet spell slingers list for you guys yet. And this one is unique and spicy. Lilah Undefeated Slickshot is truly undefeated when it comes to generating us value from our instants and sorceries. This 3-drop will allow us to plot our instant and sorcery spells after they resolve when casting them from our hand, allowing us to cast them again for free on a later turn at sorcery speed. However, there's a catch. You see, Lilah doesn't discriminate. She hates using only one of her colors of magic without the other, and I don't blame her. She put the time in to master both blue and red magic. Why shouldn't she use both? So Lilah only allows us to plot multicolored spells that we cast. Now there are plenty of Izzet instants and sorceries out there that you could definitely make a functioning deck that doesn't aim to break this rule in any way, but where's the fun in that? Did you guys know Lilah is not only a powerful spellslinger, but also a proficient artist? I'd like to introduce you to her assistant, Painter's Servant. Painter's Servant allows us to turn all of our spells multicolor, and therefore get double value from every single instant and sorcery in the list. Double Jessica's Will? How about 2 turns of Mana Geyser in a row? Yes please. Now, how are we gonna find Painter's Servant consistently in an Izzet Spellslinger deck? Well, Polymorph of course. What do you need for a Polymorph spells to work? Tokens and bombs. So we got a bunch of them. This is a Spellslinger deck for the Timmies out there who love giant bombs but still like slinging spells and storming off. Let's get into those bombs. I have 3 categories of bombs. We got the card draw bombs that are going to give us absurd amount of card advantage and make sure we find everything we need in order to take over the game with immense value. The second category is our token bombs. These are going to make more tokens so that we can continue our polymorph train to find our final category of bombs. These token making bombs are also very important because once we have Painter's Servant in play, we're going to be able to plot our polymorph spells so that we can use them again. So the token making bombs will make it so we can guarantee to have more of those tokens so we can keep the polymorph chain going. And find this final category of bombs, which are our win cons. These give us extreme amount of value or the ability to buff up our tokens in order to secure our opponent's destruction. Now, normally with Painter's Servant, we are going to want to choose a color that is neither red or blue so that we can guarantee that all of our spells are multicolor. However, there is one really nasty reason why we may wish to pick blue as our color. That reason is Lawan Cephalid Empress. With Painter's Servant on blue and Lawan together, we will bounce all of our opponent's creatures to their hands and keep them locked there until they can deal with Lawan. Given a few of our polymorph spells are capable of putting multiple creatures into play at once, we do have the potential to set up this devastating synergy out of nowhere. Now, in polymorph decks, it is really important to only have really impactful creatures you are happy to spin into with your polymorph effects. So we have only 3 other creatures in the entire deck. Those creatures are Archmage Emeritus, Stormkiln Artist, which are 2 of the most powerful Spellslinger payoffs in the entire game, and finally Magnus the Red, which is just an insane piece of mana advantage in any token-based Spellslinger deck. Also makes tokens himself, which we can polymorph away, which is always nice. That's it. Those are all the creatures in the entire deck. We have 11 creatures, and it is extremely important that we do not have more so that we can make sure we hit our bombs and our Painter's Servant consistently. So we gotta make sure we have tokens in play that we can polymorph away to find much more powerful creatures. Now, in most Spellslinger decks you would generate tokens using young Pyromancer cards and stuff like that, but we can't afford to play these weak little creatures. They're just going to mess up our polymorphs. We're going to polymorph into a young Pyromancer, and that's not going to be any good. So, we need to resort to other sources. We have quite a few spells that just make tokens outright, but we also have Saheeli, which is probably our best token maker in the deck, besides our bombs, since it does exactly what the young Pyromancer does, but is not a creature herself. Another useful effect in polymorph decks is the ability to tuck our big bombs back into our deck so that we can polymorph into them instead of having to cast them. So we have Brainstorm and Valakut Awakening to fill this role. Also, since we only have 11 creatures, if those creatures get killed, we're kinda out of luck since they're our main win con. So we have a couple ways to reshuffle our graveyard back into our library again as well, so that we can hit them again with Polymorph. Now, just because we are doing Painter's Servant shenanigans doesn't mean we're going to have him 100% of the time, so most of our spells are still going to be those powerful multicolored spells that we can plot and reuse for free on a later turn with Lilah. These spells are going to be our role fillers, being our card draw and interaction, both things that are really powerful when you can double up on them. Now, it is important to remember that when you plot a spell, you can only cast it at sorcery speed, so counter spells are not super useful to plot. I really like Izzet Charm and 3 Steps Ahead for this reason specifically, since they are counter spells that we can use as counter spells the first time around, but then once we plot them, we can use one of the other modes to guarantee that we still get value out of them. Plot also makes it difficult to use some of the usual spell copy spells that we love to run in Spellslinger strategies. Things like Reiterate that copy a spell on the stack are completely unusable at sorcery speed. Luckily, we have 2 versions of this effect that work proactively and copy the next instant and sorcery spell we cast instead of reacting to the spell on the stack. And they both happen to be multicolor, which is perfect, since these spells work great with the plot mechanic and can allow some really explosive turns. We have a few more non-creature win cons as well. Mizzet's Mastery. All Spellslingers love this card. It just lets us cast our entire graveyard again, which is so powerful. Stitch in Time is a 3 mana extra turn spell that is also multicolor, so even though it only works half the time, we get it to cast it twice. So now we have a 75% chance it works at least once, and 25% chance we get to take 2 turns with it, which is crazy, and for 3 mana, those are some great odds. With Plot, the spells we have will also be free, so we can set up some really big turns where we cast a bunch of spells. So we have a few Storm payoffs. We got Grape Shot, Empty the Warrens, and the new and very powerful Elemental Eruption, which can make us a huge board of 4/4 flyers with prowess. These are definitely capable of closing out a game on their own. I also wanted to try out Fell Beast Shriek. It's a bit of interaction, but I really liked it for this splice onto sorcery ability. If you don't know how splicing works, it's an old mechanic from the original Kamigawa, where you can reveal the card from your hand and pay its splice cost, and it will add the card's effect to the sorcery that is on the stack. Notably, this doesn't count as casting the splice card, so you get to keep it in your hand and use it for later. The neat thing is, if you splice onto a spell with Storm, like Grape Shot, when the Storm trigger goes off, all those copies will also have the spliced clause on it. So if we get a Storm count of, let's say, 5, pretty reasonable in a Spellslinger deck, then splice this onto a Grape Shot, we can tap down and goad 5 of our opponent's creatures while dealing some damage around. Now, is this good or worth 4 mana? I don't know, probably not, but it's really cool, and I wanted to share this neat synergy with you guys. Finally, we got some mana rocks for our ramp options, but we also have Case of the Ransacked Lab, which is just an all-star Spellslinger card. Any Spellslinger deck should be looking to pick this thing up. It ramps us, and its card advantage, it's just amazing. Exactly what we want. We also have Sorcerer class, which I think is really underrated in these go-wide Spellslinger decks. You pay 2 mana for it initially and you get some loot value. Then, as long as you have 2 tokens in play when you level it up, it's essentially free to level up, because you can level it up and then tap those tokens to pay for whatever other instant and sorcery you wanted to cast that turn. And, since we're playing Ovika, we're going to be able to generate boards of like 10 plus tokens easily in this deck, and so in those situations, Sorcerer class is just going to be able to really catapult us in terms of mana advantage. It's going to be nuts. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this Slickshot artist. Let me know what your favorite Polymorph payoff is in the comments down below, and remember to like and subscribe to my OnlyLands for the spiciest deck content on the internet. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
Everybody looking at me.